If you're here because sleep feels elusive tonight, you've found exactly what you need. These ancient mysteries and celestial wonders are designed to guide your restless mind away from the day's worries and into a peaceful, meditative state. Let these timeless stories of flying palaces, prophetic visions, and sacred mysteries carry you gently into the deep, restorative sleep you deserve. In the quiet spaces of our modern world, it is sometimes easy to forget how vast and mysterious the sky once was to our ancestors. To them, the heavens were not simply a space to be measured and mapped, but a canvas for the divine, a home for gods, and the source of omens and wonders. They looked up with a sense of awe that we can now only try to imagine, and the stories they told, the marks they left behind, speak of a profound and enduring connection to the mysteries that unfolded above their heads. Tonight, we will journey back into that world of ancient wonder. We will explore 5 different corners of the ancient world, 5 different cultures separated by vast oceans and long centuries, yet united by a common thread, a record of something extraordinary in their skies. This is a journey into the realm, Baith, scripture, and stones, a quiet contemplation of the celestial chariots and strange visions that haunted the dreams of the ancient world. So let us begin our travels, starting in the warm, fragrant air of ancient India, with a tale of a flying palace woven into one of the world's oldest and most treasured epic poems. The Ramayana, one of the great foundational texts of Hindu scripture, is a story of love, duty, and epic struggle. It tells the tale of the noble prince Rama, an incarnation of the god Vishnu, and his quest to rescue his beloved wife Sita from the clutches of the fearsome demon king Ravana. It is a story that unfolds across a mythic landscape, a world of deep, enchanted forests, of armies of intelligent monkeys, and of gods who walk among mortals. And within this rich tapestry of myth and allegory, there is a description of a device so detailed, so seemingly technological, that it has puzzled and fascinated scholars and dreamers for centuries. It is called the Pushpaka Vimana. The story tells us that this remarkable aerial car did not originally belong to the demon king Ravana. It was first constructed by the celestial architect of the gods, a divine craftsman named Vishwakarma, and it was created for Brahma, the god of creation, himself. Brahma later gifted this magnificent Vimana to Kubera, the god of wealth, who was also Ravana's half-brother. The city of Kubera was a place of unimaginable splendor, a city of gold and jewels nestled high in the Himalayas, a paradise on earth. The Pushpaka Vimana was its greatest treasure, a vehicle befitting a god. It is described as a great, shining chariot decorated with pearls and precious gems, its structure gleaming like the midday sun. It was said to be vast, like a small palace, with many chambers, comfortable seats, and windows that offered views of the world below. But the demon king Ravana was consumed by envy and ambition. He waged a bitter war against his half-brother, and ultimately seized the city of Lanka, and with it the prized Pushpaka Vimana. It became his personal chariot, a symbol of his stolen power, a means by which he could travel with incredible speed across his island kingdom and beyond. The ancient texts describe its capabilities with a sense of wonder. It could travel great distances at the speed of thought. It did not need to be drawn by horses or any other animal. It moved, the poem says, at the will of its pilot. It could hover motionless in the sky, or dart through the air with the swiftness of the wind. It was also said to have a remarkable property. It could magically expand to accommodate any number of passengers. Yet it would never feel crowded. It was a vehicle of pure magic, or perhaps of a technology so advanced that it appeared to be magic. We encounter the Vimana most prominently at the climax of the epic tale. After a long and terrible war, Prince Rama, with the help of his monkey allies led by the valiant Hanuman, finally defeats Ravana and rescues Sita. The long journey home to their kingdom of Ayodhya now awaits them. It is then that Bibhishana, Ravana's noble brother who had sided with Rama, presents the Pushpaka Vimana to the victorious prince. He explains that this celestial car can carry them all back to their kingdom swiftly and comfortably. Rama, Sita, and their loyal companions board the magnificent aerial vehicle, and it is here that the story slows, transforming from an epic of war into a gentle, meditative travelogue. As the Pushpaka Vimana rises into the sky, the narrative takes on a quiet, descriptive quality. Rama points out the sights of the world below to his beloved Sita, his voice a calm and steady guide. Imagine them now, seated within this silent, shining palace of the sky, gazing out through its large, ornate windows. The ground recedes, the world transforming into a living map beneath them. Rama first points out the very battlefield where the great war had been fought, now quiet and still, the memory of its fury already beginning to fade. He points to the causeway, the bridge of floating stones that his monkey army had built across the strait to reach the island of Lanka, a testament to their devotion and incredible strength. As the Vimana moves northward over the deep blue waters of the Indian Ocean, Rama describes the coastlines, the white foam of the waves crashing against the sandy shores, the lines of palm trees swaying gently in the sea breeze. The world unfolds below them with a serene and dreamlike slowness. They fly over the lush, green hills of southern India, the landscape a patchwork of dense forests and cultivated fields. Rama points out rivers, like silver ribbons, winding their way to the sea, and sacred hermitages nestled in quiet forest clearings, their presence marked by a thin, rising plume of smoke from a sacrificial fire. He speaks of the rishis, the wise sages who live in these hermitages, their lives dedicated to meditation and the pursuit of spiritual truth. The journey is a lesson in geography and history, a recounting of past adventures and sacred places. The Vimana glides over the Kishkinda kingdom, the homeland of his monkey allies, and Rama reminisces about his time there, his friendship with the monkey king Sugriva. The pace of the narrative is unhurried. There is no sense of urgency, only perish, a gentle, steady progression across the vast and varied landscape. The sun shines brightly, glinting off the golden surface of the celestial car. The air is clear and calm. The passengers within the Vimana feel no wind, no turbulence, only a smooth and silent passage through the heavens. This detail is repeated. The sense of a perfectly controlled environment, a technology that masters the elements completely. They cross great mountain ranges, their peaks capped with snow, their valleys shrouded in a soft blue mist. They see great lakes, their surfaces like polished mirrors reflecting the endless sky. The world is laid bare before them in all its beauty and majesty. The description is not that of a simple flight, but of a profound, panoramic experience, a God's eye view of creation. The texts seem to take great care in describing the perfection of the vehicle, its comfort, its silence, its speed that is governed only by the will of its user. It is a vessel of peace, its original purpose restored, now carrying a righteous king and his queen home in triumph. As they finally approach their own kingdom of Kasala, they see the familiar landmarks of their home. The Sarayu River, wide and gentle, flows near the city of Ayodhya. The city itself comes into view, its temples and palaces gleaming in the afternoon sun. The people of Ayodhya, having heard the news of their king's return, pour out into the streets, their faces turned upward to the sky, their hearts filled with joy. They watch in awe as the great, shining Pushpaka Vimana, a vehicle from the realm of the gods, descends gracefully from the heavens, landing softly in a royal garden on the outskirts of the city. The story leaves us with a sense of quiet wonder. It is easy to interpret it as pure myth, a poetic fantasy, a symbol of divine power. And yet, the descriptions are so specific, so seemingly functional, that they have led many to ask a different kind of question. Is it possible that the ancient poets who composed the Ramayana were not just imagining a flying polis, but were attempting to ascribe your memory of a real physical technology? A technology so advanced, so far beyond their own understanding, that it could only be attributed to the gods. We cannot know the answer. Asterisk in this first story. We journeyed to the mythical world of ancient India as described in the epic Ramayana. We learned of the Pushpaka Vimana, a magnificent flying chariot created by the gods, which could travel at the speed of thought and move at the will of its pilot. We followed its journey as it carried the victorious Prince Rama and his wife Sita home from the island of Lanka. The tale exists in the space between myth and speculative history, leaving us to wonder if the ancient poets were describing a fantasy, or attempting to put words to a technology so advanced it could only be seen as divine. Imagine yourself a passenger on that silent, golden chariot. You feel no wind, no turbulence, only a smooth, gentle motion. Below you, the world drifts by, a quiet tapestry of mountains, rivers, and forests. The journey is calm and unhurried. The sun is warm and the air is still. There is nothing for you to do but observe this peaceful passing world. Let the gentle gliding motion of the Vimana become the rhythm of your own breathing. Let each slow breath carry you further into a state of deep tranquility. The journey's end can wait. You can rest now. The story of a divine machine, controlled by the mind of a god, now fades, and we drift westward, across time and continent, to the plains of Mesopotamia, where a mortal man, a prophet in exile, would describe a vision of a divine machine of a very different and far more terrifying nature. The 6th century before the Common Era was a time of profound sorrow and dislocation for the people of Judah. The kingdom had been conquered by the mighty Babylonian Empire. The great Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem had been destroyed, and many of the people, including their king and their priests, had been carried off into exile. They lived now as captives in a foreign land, a flat, fertile plain between the 2 great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. It was a land of towering ziggurats and sprawling, powerful cities, a place whose gods were not their God, whose ways were not their ways. Among these exiles was a priest named Ezekiel, a man of deep faith and intense spiritual sensitivity. He and his fellow exiles lived in a settlement by the river Sheba, a large irrigation canal that flowed from the Euphrates. The landscape was monotonous, a vast expanse of reeds and irrigated fields under a wide, hot sky. The days were long and filled with a sense of collective grief, a longing for their lost homeland. It was here, in this flat and mournful landscape, in the 30th year of his life, that Ezekiel had a vision that would become one of the most enigmatic and intensely debated passages in all of Scripture. He was by the river, perhaps contemplating the gentle flow of the water, the whisper of the wind through the tall reeds, the mundane and unchanging reality of his exile. And then the heavens were opened, and he saw visions of God. The Scripture describes the event not as a gentle dream, but as a powerful, almost violent intrusion into the physical world. It began with a great storm cloud coming from the north, a whirlwind of immense size. Within this cloud, Ezekiel saw a fire, a great mass of enfolding fire, meaning a fire that seemed to be folding in on itself, alive and dynamic, and around this fire there was a brilliant, radiant light, and at its center something that had the color of amber, glowing from within the heart of the flames. From out of this fiery, luminous cloud came the likeness of 4 living creatures. Their appearance was that of a man, but each had 4 faces and 4 wings. The description of their faces is precise and strange. Each creature had the face of a man in front, the face of a lion on the right side, the face of an ox on the left side, and the face of an eagle at the back. These faces, in later Christian tradition, would come to symbolize the 4 evangelists. But for Ezekiel, sitting by the river Chebar, they must have been a sight of terrifying and incomprehensible majesty. Their legs were straight, and the soles, the back of their feet, were like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Under their wings, on their 4 sides, they had human hands. Their wings were joined one to another, and when they moved, they did not turn. They each went straight forward. The movement of these creatures was as swift as a flash of lightning, Wherever the Spirit willed them to go, they went without turning. And among the living creatures there was an appearance of burning coals, fire like the appearance of torches that moved back and forth among them. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. The sound produced by this vision was overwhelming. Ezekiel describes the sound of the creature's wings as being like the noise of great waters, like the voice of the Almighty, a tumult like the noise of an army. It was not a silent, ethereal vision, but a loud, powerful, and physical manifestation. And then, as Ezekiel looked upon these living creatures, he saw the most famous and mysterious part of his vision. Fire. He saw a wheel on the earth beside each of the 4 creatures. The appearance of the wheels and their workmanship was described as being like the color of beryl, a pale sea-green gemstone, and all 4 wheels had the same likeness, their appearance, and their workmanship were, as it were, a wheel in the middle of a wheel. This phrase has captivated the imagination for millennia. Did it mean to wheels interlocked at a right angle, allowing for movement in any direction without turning? A kind of omnidirectional wheel. The text seems to support this, for it says, when the wheels went, they went in any of their 4 directions without turning as they went. The rims of these wheels were high and awesome, and they were full of eyes all around. This detail adds another layer of profound strangeness. The wheels were not just a mechanism of movement. They were alive, intelligent, all-seeing. The spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. So when the creatures moved, the wheels moved with them. When the creatures stood still, the wheels stood still. And when the creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted. Beside them, the connection between the creatures and the wheels was absolute, a single, unified system. Above the heads of these living creatures was the likeness of an expanse, or a firmament, shining like awe-inspiring crystal, spread out above them. And above this crystalline expanse was what looked like a throne of sapphire. And upon the likeness of the throne was a likeness with the appearance of a man high above. From his waist up he looked like glowing metal, like fire enclosed all around. And from his waist down he looked like fire, and there was a brilliant light all around him. This light had the appearance of the likeness of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day. This, Ezekiel understood, was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord, and when he saw it, he fell on his face, overwhelmed by the sheer power and terror and majesty of what he had witnessed. For centuries, this vision has been interpreted through a theological lens. It is seen as a profound, symbolic depiction of the nature of God. The 4 faces represent the fullness of creation, both wild and civilized. The wheels within wheels represent God's omnipresence, His ability to be everywhere and to see everything. The eyes represent His omniscience. The entire vision is a powerful reassurance to the exiled Israelites that their God is not confined to the destroyed temple in Jerusalem, that He is a universal, all-powerful being who can manifest His glory even here, in the land of their captivity. But in more recent times, a different kind of interpretation has been proposed, one that reads the text not as pure symbol, but as a literal description of a misunderstood event. This speculative viewpoint asks a simple question. What if Ezekiel, a man from a pre-industrial society, was trying to describe a close encounter with a highly advanced technological craft? In this reading, the great cloud is the body of a vehicle. The enfolding fire is its propulsion system. The four living creatures are not angels, but perhaps robotic landing gear or drones. Their faces a collection of sensors or tools. The loud, tumultuous sound is the noise of powerful engines, and the wheels within wheels are an advanced landing and propulsion system. This interpretation sees Ezekiel's vision not as a miracle, but as an observation. It suggests he was a reliable witness, describing with painstaking, almost technical detail. A machine so far beyond his comprehension that he could only filter it through the religious and symbolic language available to him. He was not describing the glory of God in a metaphorical sense, but was literally describing a glorious, shining, and terrifying machine that he believed belonged to God. We cannot know which interpretation is correct. The vision remains shrouded in the mists of time, prayer, and faith. It can be read as a deep theological statement, a psychological experience born of trauma and intense faith, or as a remarkably detailed account of an anomalous aerial phenomenon. What is certain is that the prophet Ezekiel, sitting by the river Chebar, saw something that profoundly transformed him. He saw something that came from the sky, something complex, powerful, and intelligent. And his attempt to describe that awe-inspiring, terrifying sight has left us with an enigma that continues to resonate, a vision of wheels full of eyes, turning silently in the ancient skies. Asterisk in this story. We traveled to ancient Babylonia to witness the profound and terrifying vision of the prophet Ezekiel. We explored the historical context of his exile and then delved into the strange and vivid details of his encounter by the river Chebar. We considered the two primary interpretations of this powerful event. The traditional theological view of it as a symbolic representation of God's omnipresence and glory, and the more modern, speculative idea that Ezekiel was giving a literal, detailed description of a technological craft far beyond his understanding. The story leaves us contemplating the nature of divine encounters and the challenge of describing the incomprehensible. The awesome, terrifying vision of Ezekiel has passed. The great sound has faded. The brilliant light has dimmed, and a deep silence has returned to the plains of Mesopotamia. The prophet is left alone on the riverbank, contemplating what he has seen. Let that sense of profound quiet settle over you now. The intensity is gone, replaced by a deep and abiding calm. You do not need to understand the vision. You only need to let it go. Feel the stillness of the night around you. Listen to the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breathing. It is the only sound that matters now. Let it be your focus, a soft, repetitive whisper that tells you it is time to rest. Let each breath draw you further away from thought and deeper into a state of serene, peaceful sleep. The memory of that intricate, terrifying machine of the heavens now fades, and we turn our gaze from the sky to the earth, to a place where the lines between the terrestrial and the celestial were drawn into the very land itself, on a scale so vast it can only be truly appreciated from a vantage point high above. We travel now from the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia to a place of stark and profound emptiness, the coastal plains of southern Peru. Here lies the Nazca Desert, one of the driest places on the entire planet. It is a landscape that feels ancient, almost primordial, a vast, flat, windswept plateau, a pampa stretches for miles, caught between the deep blue of the Pacific Ocean and the rising, jagged peaks of the Andes Mountains. The ground is a uniform reddish-brown, littered with small, sun-baked stones, darkened by millennia of exposure, a phenomenon known as desert varnish. The air is so dry that organic material can survive for centuries without decaying. There is a deep, abiding silence here, broken only by the sound of the wind, a lonely, sighing sound that scours the plain, carrying with it fine grains of sand and dust. It is a place that feels outside of time, a place where the past is not buried, but lies exposed, open to the sky. And it is here, etched into the very surface of this immense, empty canvas, that we find one of the world's most baffling and beautiful mysteries, the Nazca Lines. These are enormous designs created on the ground by a people known as the Nazca culture, who flourished in this region roughly between 100 BC and 700 AD for centuries. These incredible figures lay unseen and unrecognized by the outside world. They are so vast that they are almost impossible to discern from ground level. They are just faint, shallow lines in the desert floor, easily mistaken for natural features or ancient pathways. It was only in the 1920s and 30s, with the advent of commercial aviation in Peru, that pilots flying over the desert began to notice the strange, deliberate patterns below. They saw immense geometric shapes and the stylized figures of animals and birds drawn with a precision and scale that was difficult to comprehend. The mystery of the Nazca Lines had been revealed to the modern world. The method of their creation was ingeniously simple, yet required a monumental amount of organized labor. The Nazca people created the lines by carefully removing the reddish-brown, iron oxide-coated pebbles that cover the desert surface. This exposed the lighter yellowish-gray soil underneath, creating a contrast that is highly visible from the air. The lines themselves are typically only 4 to 6 inches deep. Because of the region's extreme dryness, lack of wind, and stable climate, the lines have been remarkably preserved for well over 1,000 years, a delicate and sprawling testament to the people who made them. To truly appreciate the Nazca Lines, we must imagine ourselves floating high above the desert plain, looking down as if from the Pushpaka Vimana itself. From this vantage point, the sheer scale and variety of the designs become clear. There are hundreds of individual figures, ranging from simple lines to complex zoomorphic and geometric forms. There are more than 70 animal and plant designs. We can see a hummingbird, its long beak poised as if to sip nectar, its wings. Blur of motion captured in a single, elegant line. We can see a spider, depicted with stunning anatomical accuracy, every leg perfectly placed. There is a monkey with a long, spiraling tail that coils in on itself. There is a condor, its wingspan measuring hundreds of feet, seeming to soar over the desert floor. There are fish, lizards, and strange plant-like figures. Beyond these buttermorphs, there are the geometric shapes, which are even more numerous and, in some ways, more mysterious. There are immense trapezoids, triangles, and rectangles, some stretching for thousands of feet, their edges as straight and true as if drawn with a giant ruler. There are spirals, some coiling inward, some outward, and there are the straight lines, hundreds of them, crisscrossing the pampa in all directions, some running parallel, others intersecting. These lines often run for miles, going up and over hills and through gullies without deviating from their straight path. The entire desert floor looks like a vast, incomprehensible drawing board, a celestial schematic laid out on the earth. The great question, of course, is why? Why did the Nazca people invest so much time and effort into creating these colossal figures, designs that they themselves could never have fully appreciated from the ground? For decades, archaeologists, historians, and thinkers of all kinds have tried to answer this question, and a number of compelling theories have emerged. The most widely accepted scholarly theories connect the lines to rituals, particularly those involving water and fertility. In a desert where water is the most precious resource, it is believed the lines may have been ceremonial pathways. The Nazca people would walk along these lines in great ritual processions, perhaps as a form of prayer, a way of appealing to their gods to bring rain and ensure the fertility of their crops. The animal figures might represent deities or spirits, poor, associated with water and the sky. This theory sees the lines as a kind of open-air temple, a sacred landscape designed for communal ritual. Another prominent theory suggests that the lines had an astronomical and calendrical purpose. The German scholar Maria Reich, who dedicated most of her life to studying and preserving the lines, was a strong proponent of this idea. She proposed that many of the lines were aligned with the positions of the sun, moon, and certain stars at significant times of the year, such as the solstices. The lines, in this view, functioned as a massive astronomical observatory, a way for the Nazca to track the passage of time, predict the changing of the seasons, and regulate their agricultural calendar. The figures of the animals might correspond to constellations in the Nazca zodiac, a celestial map mirrored on the earth below. These scholarly theories are grounded in evidence and an understanding of the culture and its environment. They paint a picture of a sophisticated people with a rich ceremonial life and a deep understanding of their world. But the sheer scale of the lines, their perfect execution, and the fact that they are best viewed from the air has led to other, more speculative and provocative ideas. Some writers have famously proposed that the Nazca Lines were not meant for human eyes at all. They have suggested that the vast trapezoids and long, straight lines are not pathways for pilgrims, but runways. For spacecraft, they ask the question, were the Nazca people creating these immense signals not for their gods in a metaphorical heaven, but for powerful visitors who literally descended from the sky in great shining ships? In this view, the animal figures could be a kind of welcome mat, a tribute to these powerful sky beings, or perhaps even representations of the beings themselves. One of the most famous figures is a humanoid shape standing on a hillside with large, round eyes, often nicknamed the astronaut. To some, this is a clear depiction of a visitor in a helmeted suit. This ancient astronaut theory suggests that the Nazca people were either interacting with or trying to summon back powerful celestial visitors who they saw as God. The lines were their attempt to communicate, to leave a message so large, so undeniable, that it could not be missed by those looking down from above, like the other mysteries we have explored. The true purpose of the Nazca Lines is likely lost to time, a secret held by the silent desert. It is possible that all of these theories contain a grain of truth, that the lines served multiple purposes at once: ritual, astronomical, and perhaps commemorative of a profound and mysterious event. What is undeniable is the immense effort, the shared vision, and the deep, abiding faith that was required to create them. The Nazca Lines are a testament to a human need to make a mark, to interact with the landscape on a grand scale, and to connect the earthly realm with the vast, mysterious realm of the sky. They are a quiet, sprawling, and beautiful enigma, a question written into the very surface of the earth, a question directed upward to the silent, watching heavens. Our story took us to the vast, silent Nazca Desert in Peru, a place where an ancient culture left behind an enormous and enigmatic message. Be learnt about the Nazca Lines, colossal geoglyphs of animals and geometric shapes etched into the desert floor. We explored how these lines, so vast they can only be truly seen from the sky, were created, and how they have been preserved for over 1,000 years. We then contemplated the great mystery of their purpose, considering the leading scholarly theories that they were ritual pathways or a giant astronomical calendar, as well as the more speculative idea that they were signals, poor, even runways, for celestial visitors. The Nazca Lines remain a profound and beautiful mystery, a testament to a people's desire to connect their world with the vast, watching sky. Imagine yourself floating high above that silent desert plain at dusk. The world below is a canvas of soft purples and oranges. The great lines and figures are quiet and still. A deep peace settles over the landscape. Let that deep peace settle over you. There are no questions you need to answer. The mystery can wait. Your only purpose now is to rest. Feel the stillness. Notice the gentle, easy rhythm of your own breath. It is a slow, soft, and steady rhythm. Let it be the only thing you pay attention to. Follow each breath as it carries you further away from the day and deeper into the calm, quiet, and restorative peace of sleep. The image of those vast, silent lines fades, and our journey takes us across the Atlantic to the continent of Africa to meet a people whose complex, sacred knowledge of the heavens would create a profound and deeply controversial astronomical mystery of its own. We travel now to the nation of Mali in West Africa, to a land of striking beauty and ancient traditions. Here the Niger River makes its great bend, a fertile lifeline in a landscape that stretches from savanna to the sands of the Sahara. And here we find the Bandiagara escarpment, a magnificent cliff of sandstone that rises over 60 feet from the plains below and runs for nearly 100 miles. For centuries, these cliffs have been the home of the Dogon people. Their villages are a wonder of architecture and adaptation, built directly onto the cliff face. Their houses of mud and stone seeming to grow organically from the rock. The Dogon are a people with a rich and incredibly complex culture, famous for their intricate wooden masks, their elaborate ritual dances, and their deeply held system of cosmological beliefs. Their life is one of close community, of farming millet and onions on the plains below their cliffside homes, and of passing down their sacred knowledge from one generation to the next through a council of elders. In the 1930s, two French anthropologists, Marcel Griaule and Germaine Dieterlen, began a long and intensive study of the Dogon people. They spent decades living with them, learning their language, and gradually earning the trust of the elders, who began to initiate them into the deepest, most secret levels of their traditional knowledge. What Griaule and Dieterlen reported in the years following their study was nothing short of astounding, and it would create one of the most enduring and debated mysteries in the field of archaeoastronomy. They claimed that at the very heart of the Dogon's complex creation myths and religious cosmology lay a body of surprisingly precise and detailed astronomical knowledge about the star system of Sirius. Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, is known as the Dog Star. It is a brilliant bluish-white beacon, visible from almost everywhere on Earth. But the Dogon, according to Griaule, possessed knowledge not just of Sirius itself, which they called Sigitolo, but of a second, much smaller companion star. They called this companion star Po-Tolo. The word Tolo means star, and Po refers to a tiny fundamental seed, the smallest and most important thing in their cosmology. This companion star, they told the anthropologists, is invisible to the naked eye. They described it as being incredibly small, yet also incredibly heavy, made of a mysterious super-dense metal called sargala. They stated that this invisible star, Po-Tolo, has an elliptical, not circular, orbit around the main star, Sirius, and that it takes 50 years to complete one full orbit. The astonishing thing about this knowledge is that it is all from a modern astronomical perspective entirely correct. Sirius does, in fact, have a companion star. It is a white dwarf star named Sirius B. It is completely invisible to the naked eye, and it was not even photographed until 1970. It is incredibly small, about the size of the Earth, yet it is also incredibly dense and heavy, a dying star whose matter has collapsed in on itself, and it has a highly elliptical orbit around the main star, Sirius A, with an orbital period of 50.4 years. Dogon, a traditional society with no telescopes or written language, seemed to possess a body of precise astronomical data that modern Western science had only confirmed in the 19th and 20th centuries using powerful instruments and complex mathematical calculations. The question became, how was this possible? The Dogon elders explained this knowledge through their sacred mythology. They told the story of the Namo, ancient ancestors who came to Earth thousands of years ago from the Sirius system. These beings were described as amphibious, part fish and part human, who arrived in a great ship or ark that descended to the Earth in a whirlwind of fire and noise. The Namo, they said, were beings of great wisdom, and it was they who brought the fundamentals of civilization to the Dogon people. They taught them agriculture, smithing, and social order, and they taught them about their home, the star system of Sirius. They described the main star and its tiny, heavy companion, and a third, even more distant star in the system, and they established the cycle of the Segui ceremony, the most important Dogon ritual, which is held every 50 years to mark one complete orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A. This story, the Sirius mystery, presents a profound puzzle. If the Dogon's knowledge is truly ancient and traditional, as they claim, then its origin is deeply mysterious. One speculative path, of course, is to take their myth literally. This is the ancient astronaut interpretation, which suggests that the Dogon are preserving an accurate historical memory of a real physical contact with extraterrestrial visitors from the Sirius system. The Namo were real beings, and the knowledge they imparted was a gift from a more advanced civilization. This theory sees the Dogon myths not as myths at all, but as a kind of historical and scientific record, passed down through generations. However, the scientific and academic community has remained deeply skeptical, and has proposed other, more terrestrial explanations for this apparent mystery. Skeptics point out that the French anthropologists Gréol and Dieterlon may have inadvertently introduced this knowledge themselves. They may have asked leading questions, or the Dogon elders, in their desire to please their esteemed visitors, may have incorporated information they learned from the Frenchmen into their own mythology. It is also possible that a missionary or another Western visitor in the early 20th century, armed with contemporary astronomical knowledge, could have visited the Dogon and shared this information, which was then absorbed into their rich and flexible oral tradition. Critics also point out that later anthropological studies of the Dogon have not always been able to confirm Gréol's findings about the deep, secret knowledge of Sirius. Some have found that this knowledge is not as widespread among the elders as was initially claimed, suggesting it may have been the belief of a smaller group, or a more recent addition to their cosmology. The debate continues to this day. Was the Dogon's knowledge a gift from the stars, a profound memory of an ancient encounter? Or was it a more recent cultural artifact, a fascinating example of how a traditional society can absorb and reinterpret outside knowledge, weaving it into its own mythological framework, regardless of the ultimate answer? The Dogon cosmology remains a testament to the deep and intricate ways in which human cultures seek to understand their place in the universe. Their story is a complex tapestry of myth, ritual, and surprisingly precise astronomical concepts. It draws our attention to the fact that knowledge can be encoded and transmitted in many forms, not just in scientific textbooks, but in ceremonies, in stories, and in the sacred traditions of a people who have lived in harmony with their land and their sky for centuries. Whether the knowledge came from the stars or from a chance encounter with a modern visitor, the Dogon took that knowledge and made it profoundly their own, placing it at the very heart of their understanding of creation. Asterisk, our story took us to the Bandiagara escarpment in Mali, the home of the Dogon people. We explored the Sirius mystery, the claim that this traditional society possessed advanced astronomical knowledge about the star Sirius and its invisible companion, Sirius B, centuries before Western science made the same discoveries. We learn of their myth of the Namo amphibious beings, who they say came from the Sirius system to give them this knowledge. We also considered the skeptical viewpoint, which suggests this knowledge may have come from modern visitors and was later incorporated, due into Dogon myth. The story leaves us with a fascinating anthropological puzzle about how knowledge is transmitted and how cultures create meaning, showcasing a rich cosmology regardless of its ultimate origin. Asterisk, imagine the quiet night descending on the Dogon village, nestled against the great cliffs. The day's work is done. The community is at rest. The sky above is a brilliant, clear tapestry of stars, with the bright light of Sirius holding a place of honor. There is a deep, ancient peace in this scene. Let that sense of ancient peace and community settle over you. You can let the puzzle of the stars go. The mystery is not yours to solve tonight. Your only task is to join the village in its quiet, peaceful rest. Feel the stillness. Notice the soft, steady rhythm of your own breathing. It is a quiet, ancient rhythm, a rhythm as old as life itself. Let it soothe you, calm you, and gently carry you into the deep, restorative quiet of sleep. We leave the cliffs of Mali and the profound mystery of the Star teachers, and journey for the final time to another part of Africa, to the fertile banks of the Nile, where another ancient civilization carved a different, but no less profound, celestial enigma into the stone of a sacred temple. Our final destination is the Temple of Hathor at Dendera one of the best preserved temple complexes in all of Egypt. To approach it is to feel the immense weight and majesty of pharaonic civilization. Even in the heat of the Egyptian sun, the temple's interior is cool and deeply shadowed. The great hypostyle hall is a forest of massive stone columns, their capitals carved into the likeness of the goddess Hathor, a serene, coward face that gazes out from all four sides. Every surface, every wall, every pillar, every inch of the ceiling is covered in intricate, beautifully carved hieroglyphs and religious scenes, a dense and complex tapestry of ancient belief. The ceiling itself is a marvel, painted a deep, dark blue and covered with a detailed astronomical chart of the stars and constellations, a celestial map that mirrors the heavens above. The air inside is still and quiet, thick with the scent of old stone and the faint, dusty smell of millennia. It is a place that feels saturated with sacred power, a place where the veil between the world of mortals and the world of the gods feels very thin. To find our particular mystery, we must leave the grand, open halls and descend into the hidden parts of the temple. The priests of ancient Egypt were masters of creating sacred, secret spaces. Beneath the main floor of the temple at Dendera lies a series of narrow, subterranean crypts. The journey down is through a tight, sloping passage, the ceiling low, the air growing warmer and more still. These were not places for public worship. These were the most secret, most holy parts of the temple, where the priests stored sacred texts and ritual objects, and performed the most esoteric rites. It is here, in the darkness of one of these hidden crypts, carved into a limestone wall panel, that we find the enigmatic relief known as the Dendera Light. At first glance, the scene appears to be atypical, if complex, piece of Egyptian religious art. It depicts figures in profile, making offerings and performing rituals. Mainstream Egyptology offers a clear and consistent interpretation based on the hieroglyphic texts that accompany the image. The scene is a representation of an Egyptian creation myth. The central object, a large, bulbous vessel, is said to be a lotus flower, a powerful symbol of creation and rebirth emerging from the primordial waters. Inside this lotus bulb, a snake is depicted. The snake is a form of the god Harsamtus, a creator deity who is being born from the lotus. This entire lotus hand snake symbol is being held up by a pillar with human arms. This pillar is a representation of the god of the air, and it rests on the back of another figure representing the earth. The whole image is a complex mythological allegory for the dawning of creation, the birth of a god from the cosmic flower at the beginning of time. This is the standard, scholarly understanding of the Dendera relief, and within the context of Egyptian mythology, it makes perfect sense. However, in the late 20th century, some authors and alternative researchers, looking at the image with modern eyes, proposed a startlingly different interpretation. They suggested that if you strip away the mythological context and look at the image purely from a visual, technical perspective, it bears a remarkable resemblance not to a flower, but to a piece of sophisticated electrical equipment. In this speculative view, the large, transparent bulb is not a lotus flower, but a giant glass bulb or tube, similar to an early cathode ray tube or a Crookes tube. While the snake inside, with its wavy, undulating form, is not a god, but is a perfect representation of the plasma filament, the stream of energy seen inside such a device when it is activated. This snake emerges from a socket-like object at the base of the bulb, which bears a striking resemblance to the socket of a modern light bulb or lamp. The pillar holding up the device, known in Egyptology as a jed pillar, is reinterpreted. The jed pillar has always been a symbol of stability and power, but visually, with its stacked, layered form, it looks uncannily like a hydraulic electrical insulator, the kind used to support electrical components and keep them isolated. By and running from a square box on the side of the relief, a box that could be seen as a power generator, is a thick, braided line that connects to the base of the pillar and the bulb socket. This line looks exactly like a modern electrical cable. The figures holding knives near the device are interpreted not as priests, but as a warning of the danger of this powerful energy. In this reading, the entire relief is not a mythological scene, but a diagram, a schematic for a giant, ancient, electric lamp. Proponents of this theory suggest that the ancient Egyptians may have possessed a lost form of electrical technology, and that they used these powerful lamps to illuminate the inner corridors and tombs of their monuments, explaining the curious lack of soot from torches on the ceilings of many ancient tombs. They point to other artifacts, like the so-called Baghdad Battery, a simple clay pot from ancient Mesopotamia containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod, which could have functioned as a simple galvanic cell, as evidence that knowledge of electricity may be far older than we believe. The Dendera Light, like the other mysteries we have explored, exists in this fascinating space between established archaeology and imaginative speculation. The vast majority of Egyptologists and scientists dismiss the electrical interpretation entirely, arguing that it ignores the clear textual and cultural context of the relief, and that there is no other supporting evidence for advanced electrical technology in ancient Egypt. They maintain, quite reasonably, that it is a mythological scene, and its resemblance to modern technology is purely coincidental, a case of our modern eyes projecting our own technological understanding onto the symbols of the past. And yet, the visual similarity is undeniably striking. The image remains a compelling what-if, a final, thought-provoking puzzle on our journey. It asks us to consider how an ancient culture, without our vocabulary of electricity and physics, might have chosen to depict a piece of advanced technology if they had encountered it. Would they not have used the sacred symbols available to them? Would they not have depicted it as a divine object, a vessel of creation, a flower giving birth to a serpent of light? As our journey through the ancient skies comes to a close, we are left with this gallery of enigmatic images, a shining palace that flies on thought, a terrifying, fiery wheel full of eyes, a vast network of lines meant for the sky. A tribal story of teachers from a distant, invisible star, and a sacred carving of a snake in a glass bowl. These stories, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, all seem to point to a single, profound idea, that our ancestors, in their own way, in their own languages, were trying to record encounters with the extraordinary, whether these were encounters with gods, with visions, with a lost technology of their own, or with visitors from somewhere else. We cannot know, but they felt compelled to tell the story, to carve it in stone, to draw it on the earth, and to weave it into their most sacred texts. They were trying to make sense of a universe that was far more mysterious and wondrous than they could have imagined, and their stories, their ancient, quiet, and persistent whispers of wonders in the sky, continue to invite us, even now, to do the same, to look up, to wonder, and to dream. Asterisk, asterisk, in our final story, we descended into a hidden crypt beneath the temple of Hathor at Dendera in Egypt. There, we examined a mysterious relief carving. We explored the mainstream Egyptological interpretation of the image as a mythological scene depicting the birth of a god from a lotus flower. Then we considered the more speculative theory that the carving is not a myth, but a technical diagram, due of a giant, ancient electrical lamp, pointing to the bulb-like shape, the snake-like filament, and the cable-like cord. This final enigma brought our entire journey to a close, tying together all 5 stories as different cultural expressions of a single theme. The attempt by our ancestors to record and understand extraordinary phenomena related to the sky, whether through myth, scripture, earthworks, or stone carvings. Our long journey through the ancient world is complete. The stories have all been told. The mysteries have been contemplated. A deep quiet now descends, like the stillness in that ancient Egyptian crypt. Let this profound silence be a comfort to you. Let it quiet your mind and soothe your spirit. All the grand theories, all the strange images can now fade away. There is nothing left to explore, nothing left to wonder about tonight. There is only the simple, peaceful act of resting. Feel the comfort of your bed, the gentle weight of your blanket. Notice the soft, easy rhythm of your breathing. Let it be the only thing in your awareness, a steady, gentle tide carrying you out into the calm, dark, and wonderfully peaceful ocean of deep sleep. Your journey is over. It is time to rest. If you're still here, invested, you might check my other posts. If you can't still sleep, try taking a walk. I swear you need it. Don't forget to subscribe, and may you have a good sleep, or maybe a nap.